wanted to discuss the work that we're doing with food sovereignty organizations like the Ghana Food Movement and the wider partnership, taste a recipe by Chef Abiro, who's one of the members of the Ghana Food Movement, and discuss that as an example of how food sovereignty is playing out in that place. And then lastly, just discuss, I'm sure all of you are doing very interesting things, also interested in learning from you about how to do action-oriented research or knowledge mobilization in these things. So, right, so I'm looking at the food geographies of everyday life. Beyond, as we all understand, beyond calories, vitamins, and minerals, which in this particular context is narrated as a place that is hungry or struggling with food insecurity. When you talk to people about their own food systems, about the way that they construct food, how they feed themselves, and the reasons beyond that is beyond these things. So there's a really big disconnect between policy, practice, the development industry, and how people see their own life worlds. So sub-Saharan Africa as a context, I think is really important to understand. Something I haven't really seen at a lot of food studies conferences, so I want to set the stage to understand this place. It is urbanizing twice as fast as the global average. So the issue of food insecurity is seen to be going from a predominantly rural issue to an urban issue. So much of the literature, although focuses on hungry farmers, is actually, this is changing. And as a result, you need to look at the entire food system from the rural to the urban. And it's a place which is proportionally has the highest number of people who are undernourished. But there's a paradox happening, as we see across the world, is that while people are undernourished, there's also overnourishment as a problem. And Ghana exemplifies these paradoxes really well, in that it was one of the first countries on the continent to meet the Millennium Development Goal of solving or halving its hunger rates. And so actually, comparatively, it has quite low rates of hunger. It's less severe, it's still an issue, but less severe. And most of those hunger issues are in the north of the country and in rural areas, but there's a really dramatic rise in non-communicable diseases in the past 10 to 20 years. So this is a context where the country moved from lower income to middle income country status. And so people's incomes are rising, and so are obesity rates, really striking. So 2.5 times just in the past 10 years. They have the highest rates of obesity in West Africa, which for me was really striking because there's other really large cities in West Africa and large populations. So this is a context that is both unique and somewhat representative of what's going on the rest of the continent. I do my work in the north because of the way that I have been going back to this place. Originally, I worked in the development industry, working with farmers, and quickly realized that the story is much more complex. And in order to understand this, we need to go back to good research and work with community organizations to generate knowledge. So that's what we were working on. The city is the city of Tamale. It is what people call the fastest growing city in the country. People will say in Africa, but I don't know how you would measure that. But what is growing, without a doubt, is the food system. So the number of food businesses has absolutely exploded. And so we're trying to understand all of these paradoxes and contradictions in a rapidly changing environment. One major theme that's coming about is the fact that people are choosing to eat certain foods. And the biggest problem people narrated was not of hunger, but of consuming highly processed food. And these are some of the spices. So the popular one everyone knows is Maggi. It's been around for a long time, but there's all sorts of new spices in the system. We've done hundreds of interviews with people in different communities and market vendors, and every single market vendor sells these. and you ask them why, what are they, or which ones do people like more? People like the shrimp flavor more, they like the fish flavor more than the beef or the chicken. But this was seen as a problem. Even though it's a choice, it's a problem because of the health concerns. Their concern as well for eating foreign foods, for eating foods that don't support their farmers. And the reason for this is because there's a lot of reasons for this. It's a very, very complex story. But one thing I wanted to share is just how dramatic this change is. Just how dramatic the change is. And that is, people are choosing to not eat things like vegetables because of their anxiety around how the vegetables are produced, water contamination, agrochemical use and misuse. And that's a story for another day and a big part of my research. But the point that I'm making is that they need to flavor their food. And these are the things they're turning to. And that they see that as a problem. And so it's not necessarily just about eating foreign things, it's about the consequences of that for themselves and for their environment and for their economy. So that's what I want to share in this context. People narrated that there are different types of foreign foods. So for example, KFC on the left here is differently than in America or in Canada. This is considered sort of a luxury food, a global food. This is for 100 CDs. This is supposed to feed a family, but it certainly wouldn't feed my family, and that is extremely expensive. So it's not what the average person would do on a daily basis. Maybe you take your wife or your daughter there or your son for their birthday, some special occasion, maybe. And then on the right is a rice dish at just a market, a small shop, chop bar that I had. And you can see the labeling is a local tomato paste company. They're trying to market their brand by giving tablecloths and paint and all sorts of things to the shops to advertise and to use their products. So this dish is I'm featuring it because it's an example of the many rice dishes that I ate that were excruciating to eat. When I think of Guinean food, this is not what I think of. This is not how it tastes. It was so difficult to eat for me. I can imagine other people who know how to cook it in a different way. But just even eating the food, swallowing the food, the spices were already like causing heartburn and an issue. So it's a very stark situation, an extreme one. The second major theme is around the interest and need to promote what people and organizations called disappearing and underutilized culinary ingredients. So while they recognize the instant spices as a problem, they do see alternatives. So on the left is a dish from northern Ghana called wasa wasa. It's made from the heel of an African yam. There's a list of ingredients there. Someone prepared the meal for me and demonstrated to me how it was prepared in the past versus now, how it's served. It's very delicious. It also requires really clean and sanitary environments. So people narrate this as a disappearing food, a food that they ate when they were kids or their parents used to cook for them and it no longer exists. Canton is a fermented spice from cottonseed, and it would be something you would add to flavor your dishes instead of Maggi or these instant spices. And that is seen as disappearing or underutilized. And that's the language that they used. Not traditional or local, but disappearing and underutilized. So it's part of the story of a wider changing system and how that's shaping what people are cooking at home or in the market. So people are trapped in what they many people narrated to me as addictive cycles of taste. And so this one man in a focus group explained to me last summer, he says, we used to eat the cottonseed and Dawadawa with TZ, which is a staple dish, and we were healthy, but now there is Maggi. In the past, our great-grandfathers were not eating Maggi. Now it has led to so many complications in terms of our health, causing waist pains and even stroke. We have become used to it, and if it is not in soup, we will not feel like eating it. Even if you say you don't want Maggie, your wife will hide and put it in the soup. So we are stuck. So it's that language of being stuck that was striking to me. It sort of seems like we're choosing these things, but we're not really choosing them out of a desire because it's so delicious. There's a much more complex story going on. And it's funny because when I do the focus groups with their wives, or I interview with their wives, they will complain about their husbands. Who will say, if I don't put this stuff in my food, they're gonna not eat it, and they're gonna go outside and eat someone else's food, and that's a problem. So it's like everyone wants to point fingers, but actually changing one's behavior and pushing back against these structural forces from multiple angles isn't happening. So I wanted to introduce you to a very special woman, Amina. She's a young woman in Tamale, and when I met her, she instantly became one of my favorite people, because what she's trying to do is something that a few other organizations that I found in Ghana are also doing. Amina is what she calls her Dudugu experience. Dudugu means kitchen in Dagbani, which is the local language there. And what she's trying to do is teach her people and the world about these disappearing and underutilized ingredients. And she started a kitchen that she's using as kind of like a television program. Absolutely nothing like this exists in Tamale. It is one of its kind. Things like this happening in the capital city, but the capital city is very different from the rest of the country. So this, to me, was very special. So I wanted to introduce you to Amina. And you can join her Instagram and Facebook pages if you want to know more. This is a video, so I will play it and hope that she will introduce herself and the kitchen.
It really truly means kitchen in my tribal language. So this is a concept to revitalize lost traditional recipes. I'm grown up consuming indigenous meals, and I love it. I'm growing up lots of recipes are being utilized in a lost or forgotten. So I've made it my goal to revive these recipes, indigenous grains, wild egg rolls, explore foraging, to enhance food security and food sovereignty. So this is my kitchen. I have lots of ingredients that are preserved.
So what she's pointing at, and I'll show you a video what she describes as those ingredients, are different things that she finds in the market, or she goes to different communities to collect herself. A lot of it is foraged, so a lot of them are dried vegetables or wild edibles, what some people see as weeds, but are very important for staple dishes. Some of them are different varieties of things that only very few farmers are growing. So they have to go to places where they know a guy who knows a guy who has a plot with it. And some of them are these spices. And so you have to not just find it being foraged, but also being processed in a way that can add food. So for example, this bean here, I don't know if you can see it. She features it right now on her Insta page. So one thing foreigners in the expat community in Tamale complain about when it comes to food is, they don't have a lot of bean varieties in Tamale. This is not true. So when I saw this bean, which I had never seen before, I was mesmerized by it. She immediately took me to the market to try to find some for me to prepare a jollof or a wache, another beef dish with it. So that's Amina. I think there's another video. So here she's going to explain. So there's two videos here. On the left, she's going to explain what some of the ingredients are. It's a couple of minutes. And on the right she's going to talk about Dawadawa Jollof rice, the types of rice that she's choosing to use, which is also different than the chef who created the recipe for you today. They disagree with each other. And this is the story of jollof, right? And they're both from Northern Ghana. So it's not even just about place either. It's about opinions. So we're going to use parboiled rice. I want to play this video first.
So this is grease from a tuber that I'm still actually around. It's a bit, you know, the particular tuber that is extracted. So this is dry chili. This is purple rice, our local rice. This is pearl millet called zak, and this is dory. Dory is from Dawadawa Jollof. So the locust beans is actually form these fruits. Is it dry? They are called that's the powder used for porridge and cookies. Yeah. So this is peanut powder. Processed. A lot of spices are added to it so that you take it alongside other meals. This is Dawadawa. This is Lansa is called sword beet, cocoa calamari, something. And this is red millet. This is kumquarantia or kankari. This is shuaka. These are all leafy greens that are used for soups and stews and herbs. This is actually medicine and equally is soup. This is purple. Purple is from a tree pod that is also used for soups. And we have Tabla. Tabla is cassava leaves essentially. We have two types of cassava. We have the white one and the red one. I understand the white is personal, so the red one is very special. So this is an air dried cassava leaves. This is soups. This is bantu butter. This is plant that is like oregano, like the smell is like oregano. Use as a herb in soup. It's great for soups. This is Bantoa. So the difference is Bantu and Bantoa. We don't know. Things are very similar. And this is Salon Bao or Salon Momocho. It's a wild animal. It grows through the rainy season. So that's it. This is Monsi. Monsi is from the stalks of red millet, which is used to change the color of meals when you soak it. Then you add it to your porridge. It gives it that color, that brown musky color. So this is baobab juice. That is also air dried. You can still see the green nature of it. But when you dry it in the sun, under the sun, it depends on the green. So this is sun-dried baobab juice. This is not a cassava juice. And this is bra is like canned leaves, the traditional green or vegetable. This is still the purple. And this is biaba. Biaba is also a plant that is edible and equally a medicine. I mentioned bamboo, but I forgot to mention that this is solely a herb. It's a medicine used to treat a certain ailment. But the foods are also very edible. I don't have the food right now, but I have the leaves, which is essentially a herb. And this is still this, that is the canned leaves. This is sapua. Sapua is also a wild green that I collected. Right. This is dried spring onions. See sapua green onion. The green onions you dry it. It's processed in a way. It has this aroma, this flavor. When you add it to your local meals, gosh, really have to try something. This is cotton seeds. So from the cotton tree, we have the pod, and in this we have these tiny black seeds that are also used to spice meals, to add flavor to meals, and then we call it canton. Yeah, so that's my. I'm still collecting. I have more than this, but some of them over time they got spoiled, and then I had to discard them. And I'm still researching it, but thank you.
So it's just a bit of an overview of the different things. And every time you go to her kitchen, the ingredients look different. And so I'm hoping, so she's someone who's just taking this up as for her own personal cause. So this is not something that she has studied. This is not something she's politically engaged in. She's like, I'm passionate about this. I see the problems happening in the food system, and I can make a change with the skills and interests. She's actually trained in like multimedia. She's a seamstress. She does all sorts of things. And so she sees this need, this gap. So she wants to contribute to solving some of these problems, which are around health, environment, economy, but also taste and what is considered delicious and delicious to her and the people where the places and people she lives with and grew up with, right? So that's Amina. And so the dish that the video next to this is Dawadawa Jollof. So it's the one you have a recipe for in your handout. And what makes, so jollof rice, we can talk a little bit about, hopefully the chefs on the call, I think we can talk about it as well. highly variable and contested recipe. Many, many different ways of doing this. There's no hard and fast rules, in my humble opinion, and also based on all the arguments on the internet. And she describes here the type of rice that you use to make this dish. And for what I've cooked here is jasmine rice. I don't like it. I cooked it. It's too mushy. I prefer like a basmati rice. To me, this is bad jollof. But maybe to someone who prefers jasmine rice, they like this. Now, Amina, she insists on using parboiled rice, which tastes entirely different. And the chef we'll hear from, hopefully he's on the line. He will talk about how parboiled rice is a Nigerian thing. It's not a Ghanaian thing. So all of it is correct, and none of it is correct at the same time. That's the beauty of food. So let's hear what Amina says about the rice.
We're using parboiled rice. Can you tell me why we're using parboiled rice?
Parboiled rice because that is traditional. That's indigenous. I said that the white rice that are highly refined and almost from here. I don't think we have refined rice that originates from here. This was traditionally how our ancestors or our forefathers used to prepare their rice. But we have the variety of rice, just like we have variety of beans. So like we have different varieties of rice, different flavors for different kind of, I don't know, rice meals. So when you're making wache, you have what we call wache, which is rice and beans, you mix together. It's preferable to use the brown rice. And when you use the color that I told you yesterday, once gives that coffee or rusty color. We have another rice called anofla. Anofla is a very starchy rice with a flavor. It has a distinctive flavor. It's good for jollof. The sugar that they do in the distraction. It's good for jollof. We have different forms of them. Then we have I can't even call the names. I can't call all the varieties of, like we have varieties of yam, varieties of yam. So which purple rice, this I truly cannot tell. I can't remember.
So we'll see how it tastes.
Yeah, we'll see how it tastes. So when you know the different kinds of rice, you know what to pick for what kind of rice dish. So this the other purple rice.
If you had to pick one or recommend a particular type of jollof, what would you recommend?
I would recommend not the type. I'll just recommend purple rice. Yeah, I'll just recommend.
And why do you prefer it over perfumed rice or
Perfume is
foreign
refined.
rice?
They take off the they call it, or how do they put it? It's highly refined and that makes it less nutritious, right? And also, like I said, originally or indigenously, our forefathers used to parboil their rice. They didn't highly refine rice, and almost all the perfume rice are not from northern Ghana. To be precise, they are all imported from outside. So before perfume rice, this was what our forefathers ate. So this will give you the original taste of the rice we are making. If you use perfume rice, you still achieve the same meal, but different taste, different flavor.
What's the difference in the flavor?
Well, this will give you a traditional taste, and that will give you
Something else.
something else. Yeah. So we're using purple rice.
So a couple things to unpack in this video. There's a lot. So I showed the video because it led to a very interesting discussion and came from a very, so I spent the day cooking Dawadawa Jollof with her. And so she talks about a couple of things. She mentions indigenous. Now, the literature on indigeneity in the African context is highly, highly complex. So the choice she's using, the word indigenous, is very interesting. And it's kind of, she's trying to make sense of her place. And she's trying to make sense of what is local, what is indigenous. And what she is basing these concepts on is what her experience as a child was living in the village. So actually the rice dish we ate with the parboiled rice, for me, did not taste like jollof, but actually tasted like every single rice dish that I ever ate in a rural northern community, to a T, from the texture to the smell to everything about it. And so understanding her definition of what is local, what is traditional, what is indigenous is a political question, because it's about the changing food system. It's about what's existing in the markets, what her colleagues are choosing to eat, what the restaurants are choosing to serve, and then the influence of different places and the way the media has galvanized jollof as a fun warring between different places and different people. So I wanted to show that, and even though there was children playing in the background, that's life in Northern Ghana. So you got a taste for what research, and this is an easy research context with beautiful kitchens. So that's what it looks like. So the second organization that we're working with, we're partnering with in a new knowledge mobilization grant, which I'm hoping will turn into wider related partnership action research, is with the Ghana Food Movement. When I met them for the first time, I went to one of their events and was completely blown away, because they're also using this language of underutilized and disappearing ingredients. And they have become a movement. So they've managed to galvanize this urban, very cool elite in Accra, talking about traditions that Amina in her village were talking about. And so there seems to be this thread running through this story that we're trying to make sense of together. For them, they want to start this movement to get people towards food sovereignty. And food sovereignty in Ghana, to them, looks like self-sufficiency and independence of their markets. So I'm just going to end on the left there. So if you want to learn more, please visit their website, their Instagram page. It is strikingly interesting. You can easily lose a day going through all of their materials. On the left there is Chef Abiro, which hopefully is on the line. He's the one who came up with this recipe. And actually, most of the literature that you find in your handout is written by them. So this is a truly participatory co-knowledge, co-learning space. And we're hoping to take this further. So in July, we have a knowledge mobilization workshop, for lack of a better term. Really, it's a workshop that the main food sovereignty organizations in Ghana are designing, and then I'm coordinating and putting money behind to help build this movement, strategize, organize, and then also learn from the local university, from farmers, from market vendors. So that's the next step. But I wanted to talk more about the Ghana food movement in particular, because they really care about taste. So for them, food sovereignty is about self-sufficiency. They unite diverse groups under the themes of sustainability, which is an interesting choice of terms. For them, it's, I think, ecological sustainability, like biodiversity, also youth inclusion and food sovereignty. So those are explicit terms that they're using. Youth inclusion is a major focus. They're a young organization. I think the audience as well that they're messaging to, they're on Instagram and these kinds of platforms. And they're countering the global food industry giant monopolies and politicians. So this is not just about big food. This is all about the role of the state as well. In where are they, what are they doing, and how are they representing and meeting our needs? And also interested in the planet as well as people. Food sovereignty is about independence. And for them, that means linking local producers, vendors, and manufacturers. So for example, the image here is of a local chip company. They're trying to, we don't want you to consume chips or snacks from these global food giants, consume them from the ones that are local. They're building food sovereignty through networks and through community, as opposed to through violence or aggression or protest, and what you typically assume, well, I typically see as sort of legislative advocacy. For them, it's more about community and the food space networks that they're building. So one way they're doing this is through building a database, what I see as a database, but just a database of all the different kinds of food actors and food vendors. So when you become a member, you can have access to all these different customers, service providers. And then they have a number of events to get members to come together. And so a lot of organizations that I've worked with in Ghana, they have a lot of problems with getting members together. And so farmers, market vendors, they don't feel necessarily like they're represented by food sovereignty organizations because they're isolated on their own. Whereas this group has really come up with a model to get their members active and often. So they have a members meetup once a month, the Movers Connect, where they have a panel intellectual discussion with different kinds of, they'll have academics, they'll have new companies and policymakers, radio show hosts, all sorts. So it really brings people together. And they also advocate for local food through their Buy Ghana, Build Ghana campaign. Recently wasn't about bringing things to parliaments. It was about changing individual consumer behavior. So it was try to consume only local Ghanaian food for 7 days and show us what that looks like and show us your products and network and support our members, our market vendors and companies. The third major thing they do is they curate immersive food experiences, what they call immersive food experiences. So you could call it a camp, you could call it a tour, you could call it a field trip. I'm not sure what you would call it, but that's what they're using. And so they immerse people in different ways. One way they'll do it is through, they'll take a particular ingredients, like a tiger nut or something, and bring people to where how it's grown and how it's processed, and then how it's served in different ways. Or they'll focus on different drinks. What does that look like in different spaces? Alcoholic drinks, non-alcoholic drinks, and focus on food tours around that. Immersive food experiences. They have a kitchen that will be opening up in the next year. I'm not sure what it looks like. I'm hoping to visit the space soon. But their idea there is to have their members and network to come together to learn. So they're very much interested in capacity building. We're excited to support that. Dine and Dance is something I can't wait to go to. I always miss these events, but it's a chef, professional chef, will take one ingredient and make a 3-course meal out of it using this ingredient. And they'll innovate. So it's not about tradition and it's not about innovation. It's this interesting mix and hybrid of all of these things. So they have one this weekend focused, I think, on street food. They're online, just making sure I don't miss me. And then the food tours. And the last thing that is a big emphasis, they have this youth-focused program, Youth in Food program, where they take recent grads and do a training, capacity building, and mentorship program for them as well. And that's what the picture is there. So this is a video that they have made, which I thought was brilliant and wanted to show you. Oh, what this is. Zeros in the connection. Okay. We'll address that.
Audio to the video.
It's all right. We will manage. We'll do it.
Young cast, last cast, now everybody go to breakfast. Shadow. To go out for this result, nothing to discuss, cause they bring my default and me down, I'm a me happy adult, I no go feel the place out, I'm a mind that's super dark, I put my life into my job and I know I'm in trouble, she manipulate my love, I know holy, and I know that the boss, that the bad oh, don't shadow, I need to go 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 shadow.
So I saw that, I was blown away because there's so many different imageries that they're using. Someone walking through a village, someone walking through a market, taking different groups of people who are clearly expats, people who are local, people who are young, people who are old. And when you ask them about, what do you hope for? There's all sorts of, we want to advocate for. We want to work with the Peasant Farmers Association. We want to work with the Food Sovereignty Ghana. We want to do these immersive food experiences. We want to connect market vendors. We want to do outreach. So, and we also want the mandate of slow food, something along slow food. So they really, I think, are thinking very big and broader than what we typically see in a food sovereignty. What you would stereotypically think of a food sovereignty movement. So research. So I've had the privilege to do research in this place for a while, and it wasn't, so I work mostly on farms and now in markets and in neighborhoods. And it wasn't until these organizations came to me to present my research that I realized there's a need to mobilize this research. So as I was mentioning earlier, we have a new grant to start to begin this work. And they are taking the major themes and activities in the workshop in ways that I could not have imagined. So for example, we're not just sitting in front of a screen and hearing professors talk at the local university or hybrid. We're also, and we're not just visiting farms, agroecology farms or seed banks. We are also going into the market. We're also having these dining experiences and these tastings. This is something many people have never done. And to show the value of these foods, we're also going to have a day of advocacy at the local ministry. Have young people exhibit their local food businesses and try to get them more involved in these different activities and represented. And we're working in a part of the country that these organizations don't typically work in. And so just using this opportunity to start to network and connect with this space is, I think, important as well. So it's really thinking about food sovereignty in this context seems to be a number of things that are really unique to this moment, I think, this moment in time. So this is part of a wider set of efforts at the Feeding City Lab, which I'm a part of. Prof. Sharma is here, who leads the Feeding City Lab. And we're very focused not just on academic publications, very, very important, but also the non-academic, providing different spaces for community organizations to use that knowledge and also to share with others what they're doing. So one way we do this is through a podcast that we recently launched. So go on Podbean, which is the app. You can find it
and like us.
Yes. So it's called Voices from the Food Front Lines, Pandemic and Beyond. We have already episodes
So
loading.
they are Podbean right now. They have a trailer and the first episode from the Malvern Urban Farm, led by a Black PhD student come urban farmer, Claire Bertula. So please go there, listen to it. And we will also have other episodes coming soon from New York and Manchester. If anyone knows Street Vendor Power from New York City, that's a New York City podcast. But then we're going to have one from Ghana, from South India, Sri Lanka as well. Yeah, we invite folks to join us.
Yes. So I'm very excited and privileged to be part of these efforts, and I'm hoping to rope in and bring in the voices from Northern Ghana where I work, along with op-eds that we continue to try and advocate and mobilize our research in different ways. So if you're interested in learning more about this work, there's also photo stories on the Feeding City Lab website. I wrote one related to what I spoke about today, but more about the food and these disappearing foods and ingredients. And it's funny because when I published this, I have no idea how many people read it. I didn't look at that WordPress feature, but when I sent it out to my networks, the people that I know from Northern Ghana were just, the messages came in like, this is so interesting. I haven't seen these foods in so long. I haven't seen these ingredients. They're very excited by the fact that there are organizations and individuals promoting and trying to demonstrate their value again. And the Instagram. So Instagram is something that I am new to and have never really used, never considered using it. I use Twitter, but realized Twitter is useful for the academic and advocacy space. I've found that Instagram is useful for the food photography, what are the hashtags? I forget. I'm still learning. But all of the organizations that are featured here are using Instagram. So it's something that I think academics can start to use as another platform to mobilize knowledge, or should put resources behind using. So I just wanted to share a video from the Culinary Research Center about the work that we're doing. It's a short video as well.
Just a little shout out to Kelsey Kilgore, our culinary research coordinator, recently PhD in food history, but also Adam Bishop, our lovely research assistant, who completed a wonderful project on black foodways in Toronto recently. Some of the personnel are right here.
To me, Culinaria is about its community.
100% community centered.
Coming together with colleagues.
Interdisciplinary community.
For people.
Community.
Community. It brings together academics and community collaborators.
My favorite thing about Culinaria, definitely the people who make it what it is.
And we are delighted to share the different activities we as a community do in our kitchen and beyond.
So I wanted to share that video because I feel very privileged to be part of the space and to take the research in a new direction, which is more action-oriented and applied to support food sovereignty movements, and to think about the research center, which is special in and of itself, beyond just sort of campus gardens or, urban spaces in Toronto or food immigrant businesses and restaurants, but to go beyond to the global. So it's very exciting to be able to contribute to that. So I'm grateful and wanted to share that. So Dawadawa Jollof, what we all came for. What I spent the past few hours cooking here, I wanted to share. So there's some information in your handout about it. There's a reason why I chose this dish in particular to feature today, because actually Ghanaian food is very diverse, very complex and delicious, and people care a lot about it, and it's a very fun topic to do research in. So when you talk about farming and agriculture in this place, everyone gets really pissed off and angry, but when you talk about food, they're very joyful and nostalgic, and it makes the work fun. So I'm trying to approach the food system from a fun place instead of just a place of lack and hardship and climate change and poverty. And so Dawadawa Jollof is a food. So jollof rice, has anyone here eaten jollof rice? Okay, so jollof rice is a popular dish I think of as sort of a West African across the board. It's cooked in so many different ways. So this will taste different than anything you've cooked. Some of you will hate it, some of you will like it. I'm also not a chef, so Please be gentle with me. But what was striking to me in Tamale recently, for the first time in 10 years, was I saw this dish on the menu. Of course, Dawadawa Jollof has existed in communities for a long time, but it's being narrated and called a specific kind of jollof, and that is Dawadawa Jollof. And that is because Dawadawa is a specific ingredient to northern Ghana that's seen as uniquely northern Ghanaian or to that region. It's different from the south of Ghana. It's served in other places of West Africa, like it's very popular in Burkina Faso, for example. But this is marked as a place making food. And Dawadawa is what makes this jollof different. One way it makes it different from other jollofs is the Dawadawa spice. So Dawadawa is what you can see in the picture there, an African locust bean that is grown on a tree. And what you do is you open the pods and there's this yellow powder. It's also very delicious. You can add it to your porridge or your whatever you're eating to make it sweeter instead of sugar. And then there's this black seed inside. The black seed is taken out, pounded, dried, fermented for a couple of days. And it is a very stinky process, as fermentation tends to be. But this is seen as, this is narrated as like a very stinky thing. So when you go to the market and you look to buy Dawadawa, it's like, look for the stinkiest place. That's the kind of food or ingredient it is. And it's typically sold not like this, as you can see pictured here. It's sold in these like balls of Dawadawa. And then you use the ball to cook with jollof rice. In the picture there, you see the little bits of Dawadawa in the rice. And that, I think, adds a chew to the rice dish as well that I really, really enjoy. I did not bring balls of Dawadawa from Tamale this past year because I have tried to do that in the past, and it was a very stinky affair and did not go over well. I was made fun of a lot by my friends and family. So I decided to work with some of the interviewers on the camera. Well, yeah, sure. So these products here are Dawadawa. So I met this market woman. She came to a workshop I held, and she said her customers are demanding Dawadawa in a way that's faster and easier to cook with. And so they took the balls of Dawadawa. Also, because Dawadawa is now harder to find in the markets, meaning it's not as foraged or it's not as
Sarah, you want to go just on the camera? It's smelling amazing. Don't go without eating it. We can do this after, right?
So she said, customers are coming to me asking for a product that is faster to cook with. And so I'm starting to process the Dawadawa in a different way. So it's an example of sort of innovation based on consumer interest to replace those instant spices with something. So I'll pass it around. Feel free to open it, smell it, put some in your hand, and have a look. You can see the product information. So it's all FDA approved. The other thing, I should mention, yes. The other thing I should mention, the Dawadawa is also being faked in the market. So what they're doing is people will ferment soy, make it look just like Dawadawa. So when I was looking to buy some, they're like, you cannot go in the market. You will never find it, the proper one. Those market women will hustle you and you will buy something that is not authentic, or not the real thing. So come with me and I will get you something that is actually Dawadawa. So that was funny experience, which made me think like what I was buying in the past. So jollof rice is a one-pot steamed rice dish. So everything happens in the pot. It's a tomato-based sauce, and it can take, I say, anywhere between 60 minutes and an afternoon because it depends on how much rice you're cooking and how you actually choose to cook it. It's supposed to be a steamed rice. So this is why I'm not happy with the way I prepared it, because I see it as very mushy, where it's supposed to be like more granular. I don't know if that's So if I were to go to a restaurant and order jollof and they serve me this, I'd be like, this is not whatever. And I actually think it has to do with the variety of rice, but I could be wrong. So while this, and I bought jasmine rice because it was on sale. So the taste of so while this dawadawa going around is stinky, when you cook it, it smells delicious. It makes the food taste. So when you pass by a restaurant, literally I have gone walking and you'll smell that someone's cooking with dawadawa and you'll stop and be like, where is it? Can I come over and eat? Which is also people eat commonly in Tamil, it's very common. So that's what this looks like. So I decided to choose to feature this dish because I think it's an example of businesses, people trying to make a place and put a stamp on a dish that is, while West African and quite varied, they're trying to put their mark on it, which I thought was really special. So that's my presentation. Please, I want to say thank you to Prof. Sharma, Feeding City Lab, and some of my collaborators in Ghana, as well as the Ghana Food Movement. So I want to see if Chef Abiro is here. You are, yay. Asked to unmute. What am I seeing here? Wow, my eyes are bad.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Go up to hello. Hi, Chef.
Good to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. And nice presentation, by the way. You had everything spot on.
Oh, thank you. Everything is checked and double checked. So yeah. Thank you, Chef. So I'm wondering if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Introduce the Ghana Food Movement, why you work with them, where you see it going, and then tell us about this recipe.
All right. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone again. My name is Chef Abiro, and I work with the Ghana Food Movement. I am from northern Ghana, so the upper eastern part of northern Ghana. So I am a little meters far away from where Amina comes from. And so growing up as a young man, I got interested in always helping my mom in the kitchen. And so I developed this love for cooking, and I decided to take it a notch further. So I went into culinary school and continued to be a chef. But I realized one thing in my culinary journey. I realized that there was nothing I saw there that looked like what I used to have back at home. I never saw the dawadawa in there. I never saw baobab. I never saw tamarind. I never saw hibiscus. So to a point, I felt very bad because I was like, what's happening? Do people really not want to know more about what I used to experience as a young boy? And I realized that even parts of Ghana don't know more about some of the culinary amazing things we have in northern Ghana. And so I took it upon myself as a chef to go ahead and promote northern Ghanaian cuisine and tell people about some of the amazing ingredients and stuff we have in northern Ghana. And so that's how I got in contact with the Ghana Food Movement. I was there right at the onstart in 2019, where this amazing NGO now started. I was there at the onset in 2019 where the whole thing started. So like I said, then as the name goes, Ghana Food Movement, you would expect it to be like a community of just like chefs and people who are more interested in the Ghanaian food space. But shockingly enough, Ghana Food Movement is made up of like a diverse community. So we have like, musicians, policemen, we have like people in agriculture, we have dressmakers, we have a whole lot of people that you would really not expect in like a food community. But these are people that, aside from whatever they do, believe in the potential of Ghana food and believe in sustainability and believes in food resilience and like anything that is there to make Ghanaian food stand. And that is Ghana Food Movement for you. And funny enough, with the approach Ghana Food Movement is taken, it's so different from other food organizations or food groups because we take the fun aspect, because we realize that most of the times people attack a lot of situations with a lot of seriousness, let me put it in quotes, and that really turns people away. But we've come a long way to create a community that is fun, that is so entertaining, that is worth joining. So, I mean, like the video that was sent, I mean, I think you should be expecting some cool classical music, but then this is serious Afro beats, because that is who we are. We are people who love to do what we do through fun, through engagement. So that's why we have programs like Dine and Dance, where apart from the fact that we are highlighting certain indigenous underutilized ingredients, we are also dancing our way to this cause. And so basically that's what we do in the Ghana Food Movement. And the reason why I found Ghana Food Movement to be the best place to work, or the best community to belong to, is that they work closely to what I want to do as a chef. So like I said, their mission is to be able to push Ghanaian food out there, Ghanaian food sovereignty, to make sure that everybody in the value chain, in the food space, is getting what they deserve. It's like for a very long time, farmers do not really get value for the things they cultivate. And it's like we run a monopoly system where everything is one-sided. But this is what the Ghana Food Movement is pushing. We are looking for a system where it is balanced, a system where it is fair and safe for everyone, and a system where everybody gets to benefit from the hard work they put in. And so with the Ghana Food Movement, I always say I am so grateful, because they have created multiple platforms for me to push out what Northern Ghanaian food is all about. And so that really also takes me to what we have prepared or distributed to you guys right now, the Dawadawa Jollof. So one thing about Northern Ghana is that Northern Ghana is really, really different from Southern Ghana. So in a culinary context, in a typical Northern Ghanaian setting, your parents will always tell you to eat the carbohydrate part before the protein part. Why is this a thing that is taught in our homes? We are taught this thing because we always have a notion that at any point in time, a guest can walk in, somebody might visit, a family member can come through, and it is so disrespectful for a family person or like a guest or somebody that is visiting for the first time to come and meet you eating and not find a piece of meat on the plate. And that would really sound like you never expected, or you never made in room for somebody to come in. And so that is how strong we carry hospitality. But the opposite happens in the southern part of Ghana. So in the southern part of Ghana, it's all about the big chunks of meat that is on the plate, and like the meat is the first thing they dip into. And so an easy way to spot a Northerner is to check his plate, because definitely he will finish eating all the carbohydrate part before he tackles the protein part. And that is one thing that everyone is taught in Northern Ghana. And in Northern Ghana, discipline is very key. I mean, it's a place where if you literally walk past someone and not greet the person, you would have a serious problem with your mom when you get home. This is how this is how serious being in Northern Ghana is. And I mean, it's groomed me and it's helped me navigate my way in life as a person growing up. And I always say that coming from the North is a blessing. And one thing people don't know in Ghana is that in the North, we eat for health. That is one thing. We eat for health, we eat for strength, we eat for vitality. We do not eat for enjoyment. So if you typically look at Northern food, it's not really attractive. It has dull colors, but trust me, everything in that, in that pot or in that plate is either strong or like dense in protein, dense in calcium, like helps cure anemia, diabetes, hypertension. So we are really people who eat for vitality and strength, and not people who eat for enjoyment, unlike the southern part of Ghana, where they have like a bowl of fufu and like giant mountains of meat. Sometimes I call it like a pot of zoo, or like a zoo of pot, because like you have fish, you have chicken, you have all kinds of meat you can find in there. So typically that's the difference between northern Ghana and southern Ghana. And I mean, having Dawadawa Jollof on your plate is like heaven. I mean, it's literally like heaven. Anytime you can smell Dawadawa in your meal, it brings a lot of memories where you picture yourself sitting together with your father, your mother, and like your family members all eating in one plate. So funny enough, in the northern region, we have the plates of the fathers separate from the plate of everyone else, because the fathers are considered like the heads and the leaders of the family. And so they usually have a different plate. Sometimes they eat with their wives, which are our mothers, or sometimes they eat alone. But then it's so amazing that the children all eat in the same bowl. And I mean, it's so fascinating that we have people who eat fast and people who eat slow. So generally, as a northerner, you are trained to eat fast, because if your cousin can eat more than you, you are in trouble. But I mean, these are some of the things that you, I mean, literally remember when you have a plate of Dawadawa Jollof right before you. So I wanted to make a simple, not like a correction, but like an add up to what Amina was saying. Amina was talking about parboiled rice. Yes, she is right, because when you really look at the genealogy of the people in the northern part of Ghana. Okay, so we are all from the northern part of Ghana, but I come from the upper eastern part of Ghana. Okay, so the upper eastern part of northern Ghana, to be precise. But the people who are found directly in the northern part of Ghana migrated from Nigeria. So they have their roots in Nigeria. So if you make research, if you check, you realize that Nigerian jollof is made from parboiled rice. Nigerian jollof is made from parboiled rice. And she's not wrong, because her people migrated from Nigeria. But we, those in the upper part of northern Ghana, come from Burkina Faso and from Togo and from those upper regions. So that is the slight add up I wanted to make. And so in the upper eastern part of Ghana, we cultivate our own rice, and usually the short grain rice. But because of modernity, and so I understand why Dr. Siera was complaining about having her jollof rice being mushy, because some of the jollof rice she's eaten in the restaurants are like more green. The truth is that from the very onset, we eat with our hands. And so it is natural to cook your jollof rice very soft, so that you can like mold the ball and then put it in your mouth. But then this is where we say there has been a lot of influences. So all these things changed when people started tasting fried rice, because when fried rice was instituted or introduced in our communities, people liked the fact that fried rice was very grainy and not mushy. And so it affected the taste buds of people. So all of a sudden, people wanted their jollof rice not mushy, but grainy. And I mean, all these things came about because people started eating with their hands and eating with cutlery. I mean, eating with spoons and eating with cutlery. But if you're naturally going to eat with your hands, you can't eat jollof rice when it's grainy, because it's going to spill away. But when it's soft, when it's mushy, you can mold it into a firm ball and push it through your throat. So that is how things have evolved, and that is the changes that you will find. But if you really meet an indigene, somebody who is deeply rooted in northern tradition, he will tell you that he always wants his rice cooked very soft, because he's definitely going to eat with his hands. So with some of the ingredients that you need to cook Dawadawa Jollof, first of all, you need the rice. So I still stand from the fact that you need a long grain or short grain rice. Please do not use parboiled rice, because you'll be cooking Nigerian jollof. And then you need to make a tomato sauce. So you need like your fresh tomatoes. In Ghana, we have like fresh bonnet pepper. Some use habanero. You can also use paprika to help with the color. You need your ginger, garlic, onion. So this three, ginger, garlic, onion, is like the basic Ghanaian spice. So like in every meal, you definitely taste ginger, garlic, onion. And then can go ahead to add bay leaves, rosemary, curry, and then you move ahead to the main ingredients, your dawadawa. And then I like to use shea butter. My people use shea butter for cooking. So, I mean, it's so funny that a lot of people don't know that we can cook with shea butter, because people know shea butter to be used in the cosmetic space. But truly, shea butter is very, very edible and very safe to eat. And that's what some of us have been eating for a very long time. And that's why we have a lot of hair and nice skin. Okay. And one thing people don't also know is that people know dawadawa for just the spice, but as Doctor mentioned, it has a fruit before it being changed into the spice. So the fruit is very sweet, it's yellow in color. So once you cook it, it exactly look like a custard. It has the same texture, the same taste, the same feel like a normal custard. So I call it like the African custard or the Ghanaian custard. So that's typically the thing you can get, or what you can make out of the fruit of the dawadawa. So to move ahead with cooking it, simply you have your saucepan on fire, put in your shea butter to melt in, and then literally I advise people to chop their onions and tomatoes like part, and then blend part. Because there's one thing about cooking: when you cook tomatoes and onion in the shea butter, it releases a unique flavor that is going to go ahead to make your Dawadawa Jollof very special. But other people tend to just go ahead to blend everything. But I suggest and I recommend that you always have some part of the onion and tomatoes chopped and cooked first before adding the blended one. So after like cooking your chopped tomatoes and onion.
Does anyone have any questions for Chef? Yes?
So question for you or for Chef. So you mentioned fake dawadawa. What gives? Like why? What is there to be gained by making this fake thing?
So this is part of a wider story of the changing biophysical context and political economic context. So this is more of what I study, but my understanding is that one reason is dawadawa is harder to find, or it's foraged or collected. It's not farmed or anything. And because of climate change, the trees are not fruiting the way they used to. And also people are cutting down trees. The place is becoming more desertified. So that's one reason. A second reason is there's been a big push in the region by donors like USAID. And I say USAID strategically, but also the Gates Foundation as part of the wider agricultural green revolution to push soy production. And of course, I know soy to feed chickens, but in this context, it's being narrated as a food security endeavor, so to feed families. And so I don't know, but I think this story is around the peddling of soy production, the agrarian transformations and changes coming there, plus the wider environmental concerns. So the writing that I'm doing is trying to draw all of these connections between all these things on this complex. But good question, thank you. Okay, Chef. So if anyone has, sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry for the
Yeah.
But if you have, we wanted to say a great thank you because we only have 5 minutes left and they have to use this for something else. But does anyone have any burning questions that Chef can answer in 1 minute or less?
They can also ask him like online, right, on these platforms.
Yeah, and if you have Instagram, if you want to connect with Chef, he has his own page. He also it's on your handout there. The Ghana Food Movement as well. But any other questions before we wrap up and say thank you to Chef? Okay. Yes.
I'll just say, I think I have a friend who's very homesick for Ghana who is watching the live stream and constantly messaging me about how he was relating to all of your grades and it was making me very happy when you were complaining about fried rice.
Yeah, Chef, I appreciate that detail. Thank you very much. I also am homesick. It's not my home, but am somehow missing the place. So it's nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? What did you think of the jollof? Really good. We followed your recipe, sir. So there's no battle, there's no debate. Okay. Yeah, let's not compare. It's better not to compare. Oh, you've never. Okay, so she's the. So Chef, we're very happy with the food. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
About your tamale workshop and that there'll be a recording available.
Yeah, so do pay attention to the Feeding City Lab website because we're actually bringing Chef Abiro as well to do a 3-course dine-in. Not maybe no dance, but a dine. I want him to work with Amina as well in her kitchen to sort of learn more about that space and bring the food sovereignty organizations to these different spaces in Tamale, which they've never been. So the recordings of that workshop will be on the Feeding City Lab website. So if you want to follow this work or share it with others, send me an email, follow the lab website, add all the social media handles. And thank you very much. Thank you, Chef, for all your contributions.
Thank you. Thank you.